Ukraine war can be over in a few weeks. Also, there's no stopping Elon Musk. Very interesting.
Oh.
Yeah, the Ukraine war stuff with Putin is exactly what everyone already heard. And I got to be honest, I was saying this. I don't think we're going to hear things from Putin that we haven't already heard. There were a few things, but even Putin said several times, these are not new statements. What happened with Ukraine? Very obvious. Putin said, we never agreed to allow NATO to expand against our borders. They started doing it anyway. We kept saying, please stop, please stop. They kept doing it. They kept building bases, and we said, please stop. And they said, don't worry, it will. And they kept doing it anyway. And then he said the CIA staged a coup in Ukraine with Yanukovych, which led them to the position they're in now. And it was interesting. He said what happened was, this is why they don't want you to hear this interview. This is why they didn't want Tucker to do it. Ukraine was in a free trade agreement with Russia that allowed open border customs. They could ship goods in and out. When NATO and the EU began knocking on the door of Ukraine, Russia said, this will flood our market. If Ukraine gets similar access into Europe, all of that labor and products and services will enter Ukraine. And then with an open border on our side for open customs border, we then have to deal with a flood to our market. So we told them, if you do this, we close our border. Yanukovych, the time president of Ukraine, had to make a decision. How much money is to be gained or lost due to these agreements? And we've actually talked about this quite a bit because I was in Ukraine when this was all going down, when the Maidan protests erupted. And the issue was that Yanukovych was trying to figure out whose side to take. Russia was making them an offer. European Union was making them an offer. In these big cities like Kiev and closer to the West, they were very EU favor, like they wanted to be in the EU. Because access to the EU not only meant more money, but it meant eventually Schengen zone, which is free travel. A Ukrainian could then do what many people in Poland were doing, go to the UK and get a job. And all of a sudden you're making more money. Bad for people in the UK. He didn't like what was going on with this. But a lot of people from Eastern Europe would move to Western Europe where the economy was better. So Yanukovych had to make the decision. And when it didn't look like he was going to make the right decision, Vladimir Putin's making the accusation, the CIA staged a coup to oust him. People stormed his house, his mansion, started going through his belongings. Like there were vice journalists walking through his house. Totally crazy. He fled to Russia over this. He says that was it. Like they staged a coup and now here we are. And then one thing led to another. The U.S. says they're going to support the opposition against him. And he's like, why? That means we're going to build missiles in opposition to you. And then he's like, we've got, the best missiles and you can't stop us. And here we are. I will say though, for what purpose? And maybe Elad wants to chime in on this one. Is the U.S. involved? And at this point, it is, I would say 100% confirmed beyond a reasonable doubt to any sane human being, the United States is at war with Russia. For what purpose should we be engaged in this? I mean, I'm not saying you do have an opinion on it. I'm curious your thoughts though.
I don't like to call it, I don't like to say that we're at war with Russia because we don't have boots on the ground fighting Russians, except there have been reports that there are some special forces, but I still think that those are relatively ambiguous. But on paper, we're supposed to not have troops on the ground in Ukraine right now. Right now, we are just arming the Ukrainians to be able to fight back against the Russians that invaded them. The argument to continue supporting the Ukrainians is that if Ukraine falls, Putin will continue trying to push westward as the Russians have been doing for centuries, and they'll eventually brush up against a NATO ally of ours. And if they do, that could trigger. Brush up and be ambitious enough to try to invade one of our NATO allies. More borderland with Russia allows for more risk of that conflict escalating.
But NATO did that. NATO inducting Eastern European states into NATO put NATO on Russia's border.
I think it's like, yes, in some areas. It's also like a chicken before the egg problem because Russia says that, hey, this is what's triggering us and heightening tensions between us. But these countries want to join because Russia is aggressive towards them. So like a chicken before the egg thing. I do think if Estonia, if the United States loses the political will to continue having NATO be a thing, if NATO ever dissolved, there's no reason for Putin not to continue to push westward. Definitely Latvia, Estonia, and as far as he could get.
Why?
Back into World War II. Because he's a Russian irredentist. Because he believes that all those countries are a part of Russia. Like just as he believes Ukraine is. And within his lifetime, within Putin's lifetime, those things were true. That this was a part of the USSR.
Yeah. That's a great point, actually, because Putin literally opens the interview by saying, historically, and this is a fact, Kiev was the capital of Russia. And then after he breaks down in the first half an hour of the Tucker interview how the states broke apart and this resulted in the states of like Rus or whatever he said coalescing around Moscow. Thus the capital moved. And Tucker even says right in the beginning, Putin's position seems to be there is a historical claim to Ukraine as a part of Russia.
Yeah.
And if that's true for Ukraine, I agree. Why would not it be true for the other Eastern European states?
I think we liberated those countries during the World War II, and then by forcing the dissolution of the Soviet Union, we were able to liberate the Eastern European countries from communism. And I think that's something we should be proud of.
I'm curious what everyone thinks about this. For me, that hour, maybe 40 minutes of a long build through history that Putin gives, for me, leads up to this like denazification thing he talks about. And is that something we buy? Do you think he really believes in that?
Do you buy that in good faith when he says he's denazifying Ukraine? Do you like?
I don't know. Yes. I know there's Azov that we got to worry about. There's clearly something going on. And we also know he brings up the Canadian Parliament applauding the Nazi with Zelensky.
I say yes, but when I buy a dilapidated old house and then and someone says, why are you buying it? Well, I got to get rid of the roaches that are inside of it. Is that the real reason that I bought the house? No.
Right.
Do I really want to get rid of the roaches? Yes. But the real reason about the house is to clean it up, take it over, make a profit. And the reason I'm getting the roaches is to that benefit. Yeah. So, of course, he wants to get rid of the Nazis and the Azov and those who have held those views because Soviets fought the Nazis. They're enemies.
Yeah.
But it's just like, he wants
primary.
the house.
It's dangerous too because there's no limiting principle. Because I'm looking forward to hearing about the Finnish Nazis and the Nazis in Estonia and the Nazis in Latvia.
What about the Nazis here? That's when the crazy side of my brain when I hear Putin say that. I'm like, and then you asking a lot about why are we at war with them? I'm like, well, Operation Paperclip, because we got Nazis in the government still who want to fight Russia and take it back. But maybe that's crazy.
Cue the cutscene 5 years later, and it's like a bunch of Russian ships soaring into the shores of California and Florida, and we're like, oh no, it happened.
Yeah, right.
Why didn't we believe Joe Biden?
Hologram Hitler standing on the shore.
And this is all a huge issue. And I mean, maybe we go back to Joe Biden, but I think the Americans really deserve competent leadership up top, one way or another. I know we disagree geopolitically, but we deserve somebody who at least seems like they are actively making the decision with some sort of direction in mind. We're not only having conflict right now in Russia, Ukraine's taking the backseat, but we just drone striked Hezbollah's branch in Iraq. We just killed some militia leaders there. We had 3 of our service people killed in Jordan not too long ago. Also, I believe 2 of our special forces were killed somewhere in the Red Sea on a mission to try to prevent more arms going to Yemen from Iran. So,
you said a word I don't really understand. What is competence? How does that work? Is that something that the government can do?
Can instill in people? Yeah, I mean, like if you put a smart sounding individual in front of me instead of Joe Biden, who just seems like kind of blabbering and ridiculous, but I hate to say a Ron DeSantis like figure. That's no endorsement. I don't particularly like him, but Ron DeSantis generally sounds like he knows what he's talking about. He sounds like he has some direction more than Joe Biden.
And after running for president.
That's right.
Not during. Not during.
Yeah, no, I honestly I can't think of
a worse example.
No, like DeSantis is better than Biden, obviously. But in terms of a good salesman in government who actually can pitch something and make it sound believable, Obama was that. And right now, I don't know. I don't know if I can name somebody. Is there someone in politics who could really convince you of something?
Well, Vivek could.
That's true.
He's honest about stuff.
Vivek could convince me of one thing, that he's a cynical politician trying to sell me something. Like, in my opinion,
I agree with you, dude. I agree with you.
He'll hear something that's popular. In my opinion, as I interpret it, whenever direction he sees the political winds blowing, he'll hop right on board. And what triggered me the most about that was this January 6th flip flop.
Yes.
But
dude, I'm with you.
I think we need to be more cautious about very cynical political actors.
I don't know if it was a full flip-flop, though. I mean, I think it's possible on January 6th to see that it was kind of like not a cool scene, but also not think that it was an insurrection. Like, it's possible to have both of those.
He cried about it. I think I don't believe it. I don't trust him. I really don't. I think he says a lot of things I really agree with. So I
because
gotta
you
watch
want
my
to hear them because he wants
cynical.
to win you over,
and I'm cynical. But I don't think the guy, if he runs again, if he doesn't do like a Rumble podcast deal, he won't be the same Vivek in 28 that I think he is.
I think he had a good opportunity to run as like the Trump number 2 while Trump was.
we need a competent
coattails.
leader that's going to be honest with people and be like, we're creating a new world order, this liberal economic order. The time is done of American dominance, military dominance. We're creating something new, so let's get on board. The U.S. Constitution is legit, and we're going to force this thing on the world. That's part of our bargain of, yes, we'll go along
We're not going to
peacefully.
be strong, but we'll be extra strong.
Yeah,
You will be free.
We're gonna peacefully allow for this transfer to a new global ordinance, but we're gonna make sure that free speech is at the center.
No, I don't
I want to jump to the next story, but I do got to give a shout out to this one segment Cassandra McDonald posted. LMAO, Putin called out Tucker Carlson for wanting to join the CIA. Let's play it.
So good.
Armed opposition committed a coup in Kiev. What is that supposed to mean? Who do you think you are? I wanted to ask the then U.S. leadership.
With the backing of whom?
With the backing of CIA, of course. The organization you wanted to join back in the day, as I understand. We should thank God they didn't let you in.
It's
that caught him
choppy
by
because
surprise.
it was actually sped up and then slowed down.
Was Tucker looking at going to the CIA, joining the CIA?
Yes.
Supposedly.
Look,
I like
it is a serious organization. I understand. My former vis-a-vis in the sense that I served in the first main directorate. So you
Yeah, he was KGB. He
I
knows
like
what
that
he's talking
part.
about.
He's trying to be
Very,
charming with
very
Tucker.
good. And shout out to Tucker Carlson for keeping that in there. And you know,
Is there any other coverage of that, or is he kind of like exposing that?
that he wanted to be in the CIA?
Yeah.
I think that's been
everybody
out.
knows.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's been
okay,
out.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.